When most people hear AML or CTF, they think forms, checks, documents, systems. But the truth is far bigger than that. Because what we do in AML is one of the world's quietest forms of human protection. You will never see a headline that says, "Financial advisor prevents trafficking ring," or "KYC check stops terrorist financing." But behind the scenes, that is exactly what happens. The impact we make is invisible by design. And every person in this room is part of that front line. Every movement of money tells a story. Some stories are positive, like education, family support, business growth. Others conceal exploitation, fraud, coercion, or something darker. Our job isn't just to complete checklists. Our role is to read intent, to notice patterns, to question inconsistencies, to pause when something doesn't feel right. Because that moment when you stop and question, that's where AML becomes real. This all sounds big, global, complex, evolving. But in practice, effective AML comes down to a few critical behaviors. It's about being curious, not just compliant. Having the confidence to challenge when something doesn't align. Looking beyond the transaction to understand the context behind it. And documenting your decisions clearly so they stand up to scrutiny. Because in today's environment, it's not enough to do the work. You have to be able to demonstrate that it works. And critically, this doesn't stop at onboarding. Too often, AML is treated as a point-in-time exercise. But risk evolves, and so must our controls. Outdated documents, missed reviews, incomplete records. These are not administrative gaps. They are regulatory failures. And increasingly, they are the reason firms are fined. So this is not just about doing the work. It's about doing the basics consistently and well. Why does this matter more than ever? Because the threat landscape has changed. Most terrorist activity happens close to borders, within 50 to 100 kilometers, which tells us something critical. Cross-border money movement is a risk zone. Terrorist groups rely on illicit economies, arms, minerals, fuel, and trafficking, all of which leave financial fingerprints. In Western countries, attacks are increasingly carried out by lone actors using small, everyday transactions designed to blend in. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. Which means detection doesn't come from systems alone. It comes from people. People who notice when the story doesn't add up. There's another shift we cannot ignore: youth radicalization. A growing number of investigations now involve minors. Radicalization that once took months or years now happens in weeks. And they use the same tools many of our clients use: online payments or e-money. The amounts are small, the signals are subtle, but they are there. And in this environment, your judgment becomes critical. That instinct, that moment where you think, something isn't quite right, that is no longer a soft skill. It is a frontline defense. We are entering one of the most significant regulatory shifts in AML history. Across jurisdictions, expectations are being reset. The EU is moving to a single, directly applicable AML rulebook. No more 27 interpretations. And with the introduction of AMLA, the new EU Anti-Money Laundering Authority, supervision becomes more centralised, more consistent, and more visible, which leads to a fundamental shift. The era of regulatory arbitrage is ending. There is no easier jurisdiction, no lighter touch environment. The expectation is the same across all EU member states, a true level playing field. And that means one thing for us: the standard is higher and the margin for error is smaller. Across the UK, DIFC, US, and other jurisdictions, the direction is the same. Focus on outcomes, effectiveness, and proof. So regulators are now asking 3 simple questions. Are your controls strong? Is your documentation clear? And most importantly, can you prove that what you are doing actually works? The scale of the challenge explains why this reset is happening. Each year, between $800 billion and $2 trillion is laundered. Only around 1% of suspicious activity reports lead to investigation. Billions are issued in fines, not for the crime itself, but for failing to prevent it. And roughly 70% of laundering schemes cross at least one border. This is not a static problem. It is growing, it is accelerating, and it is becoming increasingly complex. And that's why regulators are no longer asking, do you have controls? They are asking, do they work every single day? And it's important to be clear, when firms are fined for AML failures, the impact goes far beyond the financial penalty. First, reputation. Regulatory actions are public. They are picked up by the media, and they shape how the market sees us. Reputation takes years to build, and one failure to damage. Second, client perception. Clients trust us to protect them. A breach raises questions. If they missed this, what else are they missing? Third, commercial impact. We risk losing terms of business with product providers, increased scrutiny, restrictions, or even termination of relationships. And here's the key point. We don't get fined for complex problems. We get fined for failing to do the basics consistently. Missing documents, outdated information, incomplete reviews. Simple things done poorly create serious consequences. But behind all of these numbers are people. A young woman moved across borders against her will. A vulnerable client manipulated into losing their life savings. An individual quietly radicalized, unnoticed. These are not rare cases. They are happening every single day. And many are stopped because someone noticed one small inconsistency, one detail that didn't fit the story. So here's the truth I want to leave you with. AML is not just a regulatory requirement. It is an act of integrity, an act of protection, an act of service. We are not here to process paper. We are here to protect the firm, to protect our clients, and ultimately to protect people we will never meet. Because the reality is simple. If we fail in AML, the consequences are real. Commercially, reputationally, and humanly. And that is why what we do matters.